Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. A little bit of a late start tonight. Today we're going to be learning Maseches Shavuos Daf Yud, and really we're starting about halfway down on Tes Amud Beis at the two dots. As I told someone earlier today, we're going to be getting to the end of this very hard sugya, Baruch Hashem, only to go into an incredibly difficult sugya. So today is going to be the last of the what we've been learning. What'd you say? I'm selling it. Selling it hard. The good news is that the shiur will start and the shiur will end, and we will learn Torah between those bookends. And like most things in Daf Yomi, of course, there's layers, and I'll do my very best to stay super clear, which is my avoda. But today is easier than the last couple of shiurim. Again, halfway down on Tes Amud Beis at the two dots, and as you'll recall, the Mishnah on Daf Beis was pretty lengthy in regards to Yediyot Satuma with huge machlokos Tanoim, and we're actually going to be picking apart tonight a big machlokas Tanoim about the role of the Seirei Haregalim and the Seirei Rosh Chodesh. So let's just talk about it in our parlance. We bring a korban musaf on the Chagim, okay? So that's regalim. We have one coming up, please God, Emir Hashem soon of Shavuos. We just had Pesach, and then of course, in the fall we have Sukkot. So those korbanos are mechaper. To some degree, we'll see a machlokas tanaim about that. But those korbanos are mechaper. We're going to learn about that. And then, of course, we have Rosh Chodesh also coming up relatively soon, where we were halfway through the month. Tonight is the 14th of Iyar, and that Rosh Chodesh, korban musaf. Zman kapara l'chol toldosam. That's what we say in Musaf Mamish. So we're gonna have to learn a little bit tonight about what that's mechaper for. So let's get started. What? Not discussed. Not in this context. We will be discussing the Moadim. We will be discussing Rosh Chodesh, Yom Kippur. We're discussing a lot of different things. The Gemara does not mention Shabbos. I have a feeling it might come up, but I haven't seen it. I don't know. It's a good question. But we don't actually, I mean, I'm sure there is a degree of kapara, but I just don't know what it is yet. What? No. No. Kanta Shabbos or Tisa Korbanos. No. No. Just to bring right. Right. No. Okay, I don't know. I just don't know. Emir Hashem will get there at some point. So the Gemara starts like this: Reb Shimon Omer, Seirei haregalim mechaprim, that there is kapara from the korbanos that are brought on the shalosh regalim, aval lo seirei rosh chodesh. The seirei rosh chodesh are different, and there on Daf Beis, when this sheet is quoted, it says that the seirei rosh chodesh are mechaper for a person who's tahor, who ate kodesh meat that's tameh. So let's get into this. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Amar Rebbe Shai. My time of the Reb Shimon, why does he hold what he holds? And says the Gemara, because Amar Kra ve'osa nasan lachem laseis es avon ha'eda. This is a pasuk in Vayikra, referring to the Seir HaChatas, and fine. So that's what the pasuk says in regards to the regalim, is that that it's talking about Rosh Chodesh, and says the Gemara as a drasha, v'hai kra b'seir de Rosh Chodesh ksiv. So it says it's laseis es avon ha'eda. So we have the word avon here, and then we take it from this world, v'yalef avon mitzitz. You may recall from previous Masechtas, probably Maseches Yuma, but I don't recall specifically, that the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wore was mechaper. It was that plate on the forehead. It said Kodesh Lashem, and it had a certain power to it to be mechaper. So says the Gemara, V'yalif avon mitzitz, ne'emar kan avon. As we just saw, the pasuk says 2 lines above where we are, which was Laseses avon ha'ida. V'ne'emar lehalon avon. It also says, the pasuk reads in Shemos Kavches, "V'hayal meitzach Aaron v'nasa Aaron es avona kodashim, malahalan tumas basar." Just like over there by the tzitz, we're talking about being mechaper. The tzitz is mechaper by tumas basar, which is what we were talking about earlier. So too says the Gemara, Afkan tumas basar. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. By the tzitz, we have a special rule. Imalahalan by the tzitz, it's olin. It has to first be brought onto the mizbeach. Only then would we be shaykh to the world of the tzitz being mechaper. Perhaps Afkan, in our case, by Rosh Chodesh, that should be true. Says the Gemara, no. By our pasuk, by Rosh Chodesh, it says Avon ha'eda ksiv. What does that mean? Avon ha'eda ksiv. So take a look at Rashi, the first of the longer lines in Rashi, which is 6 lines, 7 lines from the bottom, 6 lines. Avon ha'eda ksiv alma mechaper al avon anoshimhu. Avon ha'eda. Unlike by the tzitz, when it's only on the mizbeach, here it's even the sins of the person, even if the animal doesn't get onto the mizbeach. That's what this answer means, and therefore, we seem to have an answer from the Gemara that we have a kal v'chomer from the world of Avon back to the world of Rosh Chodesh, and that's why Rosh Chodesh, which is discussing a tahor Jew who eats food that's kodesh, but the food is tameh, which is it's completely aser. That is what the shiur of Rosh Chodesh, the Korban Musaf on Rosh Chodesh, is mechaper for. We're 2/3, almost 3/4 of the way down on Testament Beis. The Gemara says, Michti, let's analyze. Migmar gamre mehadade. Maybe we should really be learning more deeply, more symbiotically between the two worlds. Mechaper de Rosh Chodesh adidei ve'aditzitz. Perhaps the Korban of Rosh Chodesh can be mechaper for itself, and maybe it can also be mechaper for things that the tzitz would have been mechaper for. Nafkemina lehecha de nishbar hatzitz. Perhaps that the Korban of Rosh Chodesh can be mechaper for something that would have been miskaper by the tzitz, but the tzitz broke. So the tzitz, if it's broken, it can't be mechaper. What does it mean to break? Not now. But the Gemara says that perhaps that's true, that the Korban of Rosh Chodesh can function with the same kapara of the tzitz. The Gemara says, Amar Kra Avon. It says, no, the pasuk says Avon by Rosh Chodesh. Avon echad hu nosei, ve'ein nosei beis avonos. Rosh Chodesh can only handle the averos of itself, of the Korban Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, but it cannot handle the kapara that would have been derived from the tzitz itself. Mamish. It's all there.
And the one town said he saw the tzitz in Rome. Yeah. It may or may not be still here.
It requires one good round of pillaging, and it's gold, so people would take it. It would be.
But tzitz maybe not, because there's not that much value in it. The menorah.
No, but the tzitz is gold.
Yeah. No, but how?
The menorah is 100 pounds of gold. Yeah. When you just said serious metal, Siri picked up on the phone. So I just happens all the time in learning, and I say the word mesve, I say mesive, and sometimes it hears mesive, sire, and my phone will pick up all the time. That's why my kids tell me I should learn more yeshivish. I'm like, I don't think that makes any sense. Yeah. Touche. That's not what they meant. They meant stop saying the word mesve properly. They're like, just say mesve. So says the Gemara. And then the Gemara tries to flip the script. Maybe the tzitz, we said Rosh Chodesh can't be mechaper for the tzitz, but maybe the tzitz can be mechaper for Rosh Chodesh. Nafkemina letuma de'ira bein zelazeh. That the tzitz could be mechaper after Rosh Chodesh. So Rosh Chodesh passes, a person does an avera of eating tuma, of eating something tameh when he's a tahar, and he eats kodesh that's tameh. So says the Gemara, it's after Rosh Chodesh, does he have to wait for the next Rosh Chodesh? Maybe the tzitz can chaper and be mechaper. Amar Kra Osa, no, that's not allowed. Osa no se avon ve'in acheret no se avon. It's only unidirectional. It's actually not even that. It says everyone for his own. Everything remains in its own world. The tzitz does what it does its own kapara, and Rosh Chodesh does what it does. So we have this avon gzera shava. That's how we learned, in fact, that Reb Shimon's shita makes sense. That we have this din, that the shiur of Rosh Chodesh, the korban musaf mechaper for a person who's tahor, who ate tamei kodesh food. Okay, but there are limits to the gzera shava. It's only to teach me that din, but not anything else. There is no bridge that allows the kapara for one to cover for the kaparas of the other in either direction. Ravashi Amar, a different answer. Ksiv hacha by Rosh Chodesh avon ha'eda, eda velo kachim, the people but not the kachim. V'hasim by the tzitz it says ksiv avon ha'kodashim kachim velo eda. So he gives a little bit of a different answer. And it's not massively different, but it is a little bit of a different drasha to indicate that the tzitz can't be mekaper, do the kapara of Rosh Chodesh and vice versa. So says the Gemara Givaldik. When it comes to the sheet of Reb Shimon, which had two parts, we found the second part, or 5 lines from the bottom on Testament base. Ashkechon Sirei Rosh Chodashim. I understand that the Sir of Rosh Chodesh can be the following: to mechapre al tahor, a person who's tahor sha'achal asatam. Givaldik. That's what we've been saying all along. And if you look at the 2 dots where we started today, that really was the second line of what's cut off over here. But in the Mishnah, we learned that the Seir of a Rosh Chodesh, that is mechaper for a person who is tahor, who ate kodesh that is tameh. However, says the Gemara, seirei regalim, when it comes to the korban musaf or Shavuos is upon us, let's talk about that lemaisa. Let's say Shavuos is upon us, will be Mir Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, and there's going to be a korban musaf that's going to be brought on Shavuos. That seir, the mechaper al she'ein bayadia lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof minal, and how do we know that the korban of musaf will help with Yediyah Satuma? Remember, we have 4 permutations of Yediyah Satuma. I knew, and then I didn't know. I didn't know, and then I know. I know, and then I know. Or I don't know, and I don't know. So for that last one, if I don't know, and I didn't know, I never knew, and I did halama. So says the Gemara, that's where the korban musaf of Shavuos or any of the Chagim will come in. Kid Amar, where do we know this from? That this is in fact true. Kid Amar Reb Chama b'Reb Chanina. This is a bit of a lengthy answer. It'll get us to the 2 dots a third of the way down, but there are numerous steps here. So let's just hold cup. Kedamar Rav Chama b'Reb Chanina. Seir useir. When the pasuk is talking about useir chatas echad l'chaper aleichem, this is found in numerous places by the regalim. And if you look in the Torah or Hashalem, I don't know if you all have this. I have the Oz V'Hadar. But if you look in the Mara Mekomos on the pasuk on the side, it says Useir chatas echad l'chaper aleichem, and listen to what it says underneath. Bamidbar kaf ches, midbar kaf beis, v'chein od lahalan b'sha'ar regalim. Same pasuk, same korban, very similar language. So says the Gemara, it doesn't just say seir, it says useir. Hachanami, that when it comes to our halacha, we apply the same principle of seir useir, top of Yud and Aleph. What does that come to teach us? The iskush seire haragalim l'seire roshe chodashim, to teach us that there is a hekesh between the world of the korban musaf of a regel and the korban musaf of Rosh Chodesh. Ma seir de Rosh Chodesh b'milsa de kodesh mechaprei. Just like by Rosh Chodesh, as we proved at the bottom of Testament Beis, that it's all about kodesh. A person who was tahor ate something that was tameh and kodesh. So af seirei regalim, the same thing is true when it comes to seirei regalim, the korban musaf of a regel, b'milsa de kodesh mechaprei. So we know that at least the world of the korban musaf of a regel is dealing with something in kodesh. We don't exactly know what yet, but we know that so that's all stage 1 of this malach. Remember our question: how do we know that seirei regalim are as Reb Shimon said? Reb Shimon had said is talking about ein yediyah b'tchila, and then you were tameh, you went into the mikdash, ein yediyah b'sof. How do we know that the korban regel works? Stage 1, we know it's talking about something about kedusha. That's stage 1. Okay, let's move on to stage 2. If you want to say it's doing the same thing, the same function as Rosh Chodesh, which is, as we saw a few lines ago, was to say that a tahor person ate kodesh that's tummy. That makes no sense, because Hamrinan osa no se avon ve'ein acher no se avon. It's a singular function in korban. The seir Rosh Chodesh does its own thing, and it doesn't overlap with another thing. Only a seir of Rosh Chodesh would be dealing with that case, not the seir of a regel. So let's come up with another possibility. You want to say that perhaps the seir, the korban musaf of the regalim, is similar to Yom Kippur. That can't be, because Amrinan, we said yesterday, achas b'shana. It can't be the shalosh regalim korban does the same thing as Yom Kippur. Why not? Because the Yom Kippur korban drasha, it only happens one time a year. There's no duplicative, similar type of korban of the korban on Yom Kippur. It's a chiddush minei ubei. We don't apply it anywhere. So therefore, amai mechapre. What then is the kapara of the korban of the shalosh regalim? Says the Gemara, there are only a couple of permutations. If I knew I was tamei, I pashut forgot, and then I went into the mikdash, and then afterwards I remembered, this pasuk will not cover you. Why not? This is not what the korban of the regalim are going to do. When we come to Shavuos Emir Hashem with a korban, that's not going to help me. Why not? Hi bar korbanu. You're a korban olav yored. That's our Mishnah Daf Beis. Pashat, that's the seirei regalim are not going to be covering you for something that you're chayav a korban on already by the olav yored. That's the prototype of olav yored in our Mishnah. That's for sure not the case. And 10 lines down, let's talk about another permutation of knowledge. If you want to say, I knew when I was tamei, I had a ha'alama, and that I never remembered again that I was tamei. So then, that is covered by a double, a twofer of the Seir Lashem and Itzumo Shel Yom of Yom Kippurim. That's not regalim. What's the third permutation? Let's say I knew in the beginning. Which one is it? I didn't know I became tamei, and and then I went into the mikdash, which was aser, and then I came out and someone said, "By the way, you were standing on top of a corpse." So then says the Gemara, "Hi." As also seir hanase bachutz v'yom kippur mechaber. That's covered by the korban musaf on Yom Kippur, not the inner Seir LaHashem, not the Seir LaHashem, Seir LaZazah, but the Korban Musaf that's brought on the outer Mizbeach. So what's left? There's only one thing that's left. Says the Gemara, a third of the way down, Al Korchach, Einu Mechaper Ela Al She'ein Bayadia, Lo B'tchila V'lo B'sov. Let's remember what we were trying to figure out in this Amud of Gemara. We started out our question by quoting our Mishnah that Reb Shimon had two separate dinim. One is that the Seirei Regalim were mechaper, but we didn't know what for. The other was the Seirei Regalim, the Seirei Rosh Chodesh, which was mechaper for the case of a tahor person who ate kodesh that's tamei. So we proved the first, now we prove the second. We proved Rosh Chodesh already, done. Hi, what about Seirei Regalim? We went through all the permutations. It can't be like Rosh Chodesh. It can't be like Yom Kippur. It has to be a regular case of B'dias HaToma. We looked at all four permutations of I knew before, I didn't know after. I didn't know before, I did know after. All of them. And we concluded there's only one left that wasn't yet covered by another korban. One was Olav Yored. One was the Seir Lashem. One was the korban Musaf, which was outside. Last but not least, there's nothing to cover. Elamai, it must be that the Seirei Regalim cover a case of Ein Bayadia Lo B'tchila V'lo B'sof. And all of this is the sheet of Reb Shimon. So says the Gemara, what about Reb Meir? Reb Meir and our Mishnah disagreed with Reb Shimon. Reb Meir Omer, Kol HaSeirim Kaparas and Shaveh. All the Seirim, Yom Kippur, Rosh Chodesh, Seir LaHashem, Regalim, they all have a similar function. That is diametrically opposed to all the drashas we just saw in Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon said that Ein L'chabar L'chidusha by Yom Kippur. Reb Shimon said that Rosh Chodesh is unique because of a drasha. Reb Shimon said that the Regalim are unique because they're not like everything else. Reb Meir, diametrically opposed. All of the Seirim do similar things. So we have to get into this and figure out why. Amar Reb Chama bar Reb Chanina, my time of the Reb Meir. Why does he say that? And look at this drasha. Same drasha we saw before, and he just totally learns it differently. Amar Kra Seir Useir. Look at this line. Hukshu kol ha-seirim zelazeh vav mosif al inyan rishon. Unbelievable. We see this korban musaf as a seir that's brought by Rosh Chodesh, it's brought by Yom Kippur, it's brought by Sukkot, it's brought by Pesach, it's brought by Shavuos. The korban seir musaf is everywhere. And the vav of useir is mosif al inyan rishon from the previous references of a korban musaf. And therefore, all of the korbanos seir, which are korbanos musaf, have the same function. They solve problems of tumas hamikdash. Says the Gemara, okay, kasal kadaitach, it seems to be that kol chad v'chad nechavre gomar, that you learn one korban musaf from the one prior. That's a problem. And this is a problem that we're not going to learn about until we get deep into Kodshim. And says the Gemara, how deep into Kodshim is it? Where's Zvachim? Is that soon? Oh, we got a while. But in Zvachim, the Gemara says, quoted over here is Zvachim Mem Tes, V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, how can you say that we're hukshu all of them one to the other because of the vav of usir, vav mosif al inyan rishon? How can you say that? Kol Torah kula lemeidin lamad mi lamad. I agree. If I learn point B from point A, I'm also allowed to learn point C from point B. No problem, with one exception. Chutz mikodshim, which is our case. Chutz mikodshim she'ein lemeidin lamad mi lamad. So we have a limiting factor. In Kol Torah Kula, we're allowed to learn B from A and then C from B, not in Kachin. So if that's true, says the Gemara, you want to say it says Seir by one and Useir by the other, Seir by one. You can't do that. You can't learn like that from one to the other in the world of Kachim. And what are we talking about? The Korban Musaf. That's Kachim. So we're trapped. So says the Gemara with a clever answer, Halokasha, we're halfway down on Yudam and Aleph. We're only going to be learning to halfway down on Yudam and Beis because the next sugya will start fresh tomorrow. Halokasha, Kulhu Mikama Gamri. No, we're not learning, and I'm making up the order here. We're not learning Rosh Hashanah from Yom Kippur, and then Pesach from Rosh Hashanah, and then Shavuos from. We're not learning like that. It's not that we're learning B from A and C from B, and D. We're not learning like that. Ella, how are we learning? Everything is Kul Mikama Gamri. Everything is learned from the first one. Everything is B, which we learned out from A. Namely, if A is mechaper on Tumas Mikdash, then B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all of them are learned from A. And therefore, because in precedence, I don't know which one was first, because the first find of the Korban Musaf in the Torah that's like a binyanav ki'ilu. That's what really taught us what a seir does, the korban musaf. And therefore, we see that you are done for. That every type of scenario, and this is why Rav Meir is diametrically opposed to Rav Shimon. He holds that every seir has a similar function. In that, it is mechaper for tumas mikdash. Says the Gemara, hold on. Teinach kol dekasa be useir. Oh, I could understand if it says useir. Let's say we had, our 5 sugyas: Rosh Chodesh, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. The first one says Seir. The second one says Useir, 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 Useir. I got it. You want to tell me that there's a vav on all of them? No problem. We'll all go back to the first one. That was your assumption. We're not learning B from A and then C from B. Everything's learned from A. You want to say that? No problem. Teinach, that makes sense in every case where it says Useir. But there are 2 cases where it doesn't say Useir. Atzeres v'Yom Kippurim delo kasa be'useir minolan. How do we know that this is a great question? Because there are 2 holidays where it doesn't say useir. The first of those holidays is upcoming, in Yirtzeh Hashem, in just a couple of weeks' time. And that is Atzeres. That when it comes to Atzeres, and now when we read the Torah on Shmini Atzeres, we'll know how important that vav is of useir, because there isn't one. It just says seir. And we read seir izimecha. That's huge. That's the Gemara's question. If it doesn't say Useir, how can we learn everything from the first time that the Seir was found? It says the Gemara, you're 100% right. Stop. It's not Seir Useir. That's answer number 1. Scrap it. Blot it out of your mind. I have a better answer. Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar Kra, very unique. I think it's an uncommon name in Shas. Does that ring a bell? Rabbi Yonah? Not very common. Says the Gemara, Omar Kra, Eile ta'asula Hashem b'moadechem. Hukshu kol hamoadim kulan zelazeh. Eile ta'asu laHashem b'moadechem. All of them are compared. All of the moadim are connected. There's only one significant problem. This pasuk is talking about Rosh Chodesh. Is Rosh Chodesh a moed? You want to tell me that the fundamental source that all of the Korbanos Musaf are the same is because they're all Moadim. But you learned it from a place that isn't a Moed. Come on. You got to do better than that. The Rosh Chodesh Lav Moed, says the Gemara. The Gemara responds, hold on one second. Not necessarily true. And we saw this Gemara a couple of times, the Amar Abaye. This is a historical time, a sad time for the Jews when the Meraglim were coming back. What day did the Meraglim come back with the Dibara? It was Tisha B'Av. It says the Gemara. Let's talk about it. It's Sivan. What's after Sivan? Sivan, Tammuz, Av. So they left in Tammuz and they came back in Av. Says the Gemara, Abaye, Amar Abaye, Tammuz da'hi shata, Tammuz of that year, Miluye Milyuhu. It was a full month. Tichsiv Kara alai moed lishbor bachurai. And this is a pasuk from Eicha, which there obviously makes perfect sense when we read Eicha. We have a reference to what happened in that horrible month of Tammuz when the Meraglim came back. I guess they came back on Tisha B'Av with that, the Dibara. So what do we see over there? What's Rosh Chodesh called? The month of Tammuz there? A moed. Oh, so beautiful.
That pasuk talks about Rosh Chodesh. That pasuk talks about Tishbal is further than.
Rashi is giving the history. He doesn't talk about that piece. I don't have a good answer for you other than to say that it says Tammuz Dahishata. That's what the pasuk was talking about. It said about that Kara Alai Moed, that Rosh Chodesh Av is referred to as a Moed. I don't know the answer to your question.
What?
No, that's why, because of the word knowing. That's Kariel or knowing.
Tishbal, yeah, so that it was a.
It's clear from the Gemara that that's not what's happening here, because obviously in the context it's answering up the fact that Rosh Chodesh Lav Moedhu. It's clear, and the pasuk is the raya. I think we'd have to learn certainly Rishonim, maybe even Rishonim on Echad to see how they teach. I don't know the answer to your question. What? No, it really was you're talking about a very good question, but it's just not referenced here. I have a Likute Rashi on the side. No. Sorry, good question. I don't know. Yeah. Rashi in Tainus says, Rosh Chodesh Yom Tov hu dichsiv kara alai moed v'havi Rosh Chodesh Av. So Rashi in Tainus says that the pasuk of kara alai moed is talking about Rosh Chodesh Av.
Okay.
Could be that I don't know if it's al derech drush. Which one's al derech drush? I don't know which one's al derech drush. And I don't know if moed is the mari makom as to why we say that Tisha B'Av is pater from Tachan. I don't know if that's the word, like in where we learn it from, but certainly Rashi and Tainus learned the word moed here is talking about Rosh Chodesh of the month of Av. Now, Rav Meir is of the opinion that all of the Seirei Musaf have a similar function, as we just pointed out, and he brought this Mari Makom from Rosh Chodesh. Eila ta'asu Hashem lamoadechem hukshu kol moadim. Fine. He does believe, however, there's one exception to the rule from all of the moadim. Amar Rav Yochanan, umoder Rav Meir besir nase bifnim shehu einu mechaper kaparasan v'hein einu mechaper kaparasan. All of the other Kabbanos Musaf across the year, no problem. They can be mechaper for similar things, with the exception of the Seir Lashem. The Seir Lashem stands alone. It cannot function on behalf of other non-Seir Lashem functions outside of that, all Seir Bachutz, none of that. And vice versa. None of the other Seirei Musaf can help with the Seir Lashem, super mechudesh korban, and there are no crossing of the lines. So says the Gemara, who einon mechaper kaparasan, kaparasa achas, kapara achas mechaper, ve'eno mechaper shtei kaparos. It's one directional, and similarly, two lines before the wide lines, hein einon mechaper and kaparaso, amakra achas b'shana, kapara zulo tehe ela achas b'shana. Just the Mari Makomos to support that idea that the Seir Lashem doesn't help the other korbanos, and the other korbanos don't help the Seir Lashem. First of the long lines, Tanya and Hamihachi, a brisa to support this idea. Al she'en b'yadiyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof. That's category number one. If you didn't know before and you did know after, if there's a person who was pure who ate meat that's tameh, seirei haregalim useirei roshei chodashim useirei hanase bachutz mechaper divrei Rab Meir v'lusir hanase bifnim shayra v'chaparos hanami shayra. The brisa enumerates clearly, exhaustively, that which is covered by the korbanos. And we leave out the Seir LaHashem. We only talk about the Seir Bachutz and the other Regalim, Rosh Chodesh, Regalim, and Seir Bachutz. We ignore, the Brisa excludes the Seir LaHashem because it doesn't belong. And that's where we see this from. All of that was Rav Meir, diametrically opposed to Reb Shimon. Here's another shita, 7 or 8 lines at the 2 dots. 7 or 8 lines from the bottom on Yud Manal. Haya Reb Shimon, Omer Seiri Roshei Chodashim Mechaper Al Tor Rosh Achal Satame Bishlama the Roshei Chodashim Lo Mechapre Ad Regalim. I understand. We're actually going back in time because we spoke about Reb Shimon already. I understand why the Rosh Chodesh Korbanos are not Mechaper on the Regel. The Amar Krabai Rosh Chodesh, it says Avon. Avon Echad Hu Nose. We saw this already. Ve'eno no Nose Shtei Avonos. Elo de regalim nichperu ad roshei chodashim. We don't yet have a mari makom as to why the korbanos of the regel are not going to be mechaper on Rosh Chodesh. Says the Gemara, Amar Kra, osa no se avon ve'ein acher no se avon. You can't have anything else help. So says the Gemara, that's clear. We learned this already. So ask the Gemara like this. Bishlama de regalim. I understand when it comes to the korbanos of the shalosh regalim lemechaper nad Yom Kippurim. We're moving on to the next level. We spoke about the comparison of Rosh Chodesh to Regel. Now let's move to analyze the comparison of Regel to Yom Kippur. I understand why the Regel is not mechaper ad Yom Kippurim damar kra by Yom Kippurim achas b'shana kapar zu lo tehel achas b'shana. But what about the reverse? El Yom Kippurim nichperu ad regalim. Amar, why would that not happen? Why can't Yom Kippur help for a lesser holiday, which is the Shalosh Regalim? Says the Gemara, Amar Kra Yom Kippurim achas kapar achas mechaper ve'ein mechaper shtei kaparos. Says the Gemara, that's a beautiful argument. And why doesn't Yom Kippur help? This is so brilliant, so subtle. The Gemara says, why doesn't the din of Yom Kippur help for the Regalim? Because the pasuk says achas. Look at the drasha. Kapar achas mechaper ve'ein mechaper shtei kaparos. There's only one problem. That's not even talking about a korban that's relevant to us. We just learned a couple of minutes ago that the Seir LaHashem has no shaychus to the other korbanos. So if you want to tell me that the Seir Bachutz can't help a regel, don't quote me from the Seir LaHashem. The Seir LaHashem has nothing to do, as we saw, with any of the other korbanos. Oh, why can't the korbanos of Shavuos, Pesach, and Sukkot, why can't that be helped by the Seir Bachutz, the korban Musaf on Yom Kippur? Because of Achas. Well, Achas is not the right pasuk. That's not talking about the Seir Bachutz. That's talking about the Seir Bifnim. No, it's not Shayach. Beautiful question. Says the Gemara, Omar Kra, Milavad, turning to the top of Yud Amid Beis, heading about 2/3 of the way down. Milvad Chatas HaKippurim, the Chatas of the Kippurim, the Iskash Chitzon Lepnimi. Again, all of this needs so much work in the Rishonim, but says the Gemara, we do see a hekesh, a comparison between the Chitzon and the Pnimi. So even though the word Achas is a limiter for the Seir LaHashem, we're using it as a limiter for the Seir Bachutz, for the Korban Musaf, not the Seir LaHashem, the Korban Musaf, to teach us that the korbanos of the regel cannot be helped by the seir of Yom Kippur Bachutz, even though the word achas doesn't really apply there, it applies elsewhere, but there's a shtickle hekesh. So we bring over the word achas from Seir LaHashem and we apply it, the hekesh, to the Seir Bachutz, and therefore the Seir Bachutz cannot help the other korbanos on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. What about the third sheet in our Mishnah from Daf Beis, Daf Yomi Beis? We're on the top of the page over here. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishmo. He said in the name actually of Reb Shimon. So there's two approaches of Reb Shimon. Ma'ishno de Roshei Chodashim de lo mechaper ad regalim. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Shimon, why is it that Rosh Chodesh doesn't help on the regel? Because Damar Kra Avon Echad Hu Nosei ve'Eino Nosei Shnei Avonos. What about the regalim? Nami lo nichperu ad Roshei Chodashim. The korbanos of the regel don't help on Rosh Chodesh. Samar Kra Osa, who Nosei Avon ve'Ein Acher Nosei Avon. So then the Gemara over here seems to say, what then? Sorry, let me just Mishnah over here. So says the Gemara, what do we do with the word? I think I read too far here. Says the Gemara, Mishnah the Roshei Chodashim. Sorry, back to the beginning of the Mishnah the Roshei Chodashim de lo mechaper ad regalim. Why is it that Rosh Chodesh can't be mechaper on the regel? To Amar Kra Avon echad hu nosei ve'eno nosei shnei avonos. Says the Gemara, the regalim nami lo nichperu. It should also be true by the regalim that the lo nichperu, that they can't help out the Rosh Chodashim. To Amar Kra Osa, because the pasuk says the word Osa, it shouldn't be able to help. Osa hu nosei avon ve'ein acher nosei avon. And yet, according to him, that's not the shita of Reb Shimon. It should be helpful. So says the Gemara, Osa lo mashma. Lo mashma. He says that according to, this is Reb Shimon ben Yehuda and the name of Reb Shimon, we do not use the word Osa for a drasha. It's just regular Torah. Just a word in the Torah that is not meant to be darshaned. So ask the Gemara 8 lines down, Mai shna de regalim de lo mechapre ad Yom Kippurim. Why, within Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, why don't we have the korbanos of the Shalosh Regalim? Why can't They help with Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, the Amar Kra by Yom Kippur achas b'shana kapara zulote achas b'shana. Because kapara by Yom Kippur is a chiddush. Asks the Gemara, Ihachi de Yom Kippurim nami lo nichbara de regalim. We should say that Yom Kippur can't help the regalim either, because achas ksiv kapara achas mechaper benim mechaper shtei kaparos. So says the Gemara, achas lo mashmalei. He doesn't make a drasha from the word achas. We've learned it 5 or 6 times already today within the various Tanaim that we've seen. He holds that that's not a svar. Ask the Gemara, Amai, why is that true? That which we said was a hekesh earlier in the shita of the previous Tana is the opposite svar over here. What we thought over there was a problem. The Gemara answered at the top of this page that there's a hekesh, and that's how we knew that the hekesh between Seir Lashem and the Seir, the Korban Musaf, which was Bachut, that helped us to learn a halach on the previous page. Here he says, no, that's only Bifnim. You can't learn from there. So the Achas is unavailable to be learned here. Maybe we should say that the Korban of the Shalosh Regalim should also be Mechaper on Yom Kippur. Achas. Maybe that word's not available. The Seir Anasa Bifnim Ksiv. Says the Gemara, no, we have to retract and recant a little bit. Le'olam, we're halfway down in the other base. Le'olam achas mashmalei. That the achas that's used by the Seir Lashem, that word is taka available for drasha. V'shayni hacha de amar kra. It's different over here because the pasuk says v'chiper Aaron al karnosav achas b'shana. Karnosav de mizbeach hapnimi hu de chapar achas mechaper. Ve'ena mechaper shtei kaparos. That the inner mizbeach by the Kodesh HaKodashim, where the Seir LaHashem was brought, that can only have one function, and that's whatever happens in that room. What happens in that room stays in that room. However, Hadachitzon, but the outer Mizbeach, the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the big Mizbeach that we are familiar with from most of our pictures, from all of the books, especially the ones that we saw in Maseches Tamid back in the day, and the Mishnayos of Kahati had a nice little printout, I believe, back in the day. But when it comes to the world of the outer mizbeach, so then Yutaka can have shtei kaparos, and there is some flexibility between Yom Kippur and the Korban Musaf, which was done bachutz. We're going to stop right here at Amar Ula, earlier than Rabbi Reznik would normally stop. But as he said, we need to start the next sugya from a clean break. We'll pause right here. Nirtzah Hashem will pick up again together tomorrow night. Wishing you all